What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about my personal and what I think is the best Canon R photo settings, and these are just the settings that I use. I'm no means gonna say that these are absolutely the best settings for everybody, because different genres of photography call for different settings, but for what I do, which is mostly like travel, lifestyle, portraiture, these are my settings, and I think these are the best settings possible. So let's jump into it. So the first thing I want to say is definitely shoot RAW. If you're not shooting RAW, I don't know what you're doing. Normally I shoot RAW plus JPEG. If I'm shooting with any friends, I can just send the photos that are JPEG to them right away. Or if I want to upload, from the camera straight to my phone and maybe upload it straight to Instagram, I can do that. It allows for that, which I think is a huge perk. So if you're not shooting RAW, definitely shoot RAW. Normally I shoot in manual because I just want to dial it in, but I also love to shoot in Aperture Priority mode, and I select the aperture and the ISO, and the camera automatically selects the shutter speed. Normally when it's super bright out like right now, this is ideal, especially when you're running gunning. I tend to set the balance to be a little bit underexposed. That allows me to focus on taking the photo and not so much the settings. So for autofocus, I tend to just use face or eye autofocus, which just works perfectly for me. I also can select the focus point by just touching the back of the screen and it'll lock on automatically. If I choose not to use this, I tend to use the single point AF. I find those are the two settings that work the best for me. I also use one shot. I don't use autofocus servo unless I'm shooting something that has a lot of movement, or I'm shooting at 1.2 aperture, because at that aperture it tends to, if you move the camera a little bit, then the shot will be out of focus. So I tend to use the AF servo for that specifically. For shutter speed, it varies obviously, but I tend to keep it above 1/100th of a second. Obviously the higher I can go, the better, to freeze all the action and have like everyone's outfit and just everything, just no movement, just super sharp and crisp. That's just what I like to do. Yes, I dip below that sometimes if I am trying to get some movement. Just for me, for a general rule, I like to keep it above 1/100th of a second. As for apertures, I love to use the lowest possible aperture in my photos. I like that crisp, creamy bokeh. Normally I'm using a f2.8 aperture lens, and if I don't have that, I tend to stop down to 1.8, 1.4, 1.2. I love shooting at 1.2 or 1.4. This is just like crispy. It's so beautiful. In my opinion, that's like my go-to aperture, but on other lenses that I do use, I tend to use 2.8 lenses. The lens I'm filming on right now is actually f4, which is low as it goes. I tend to use 2.8 or lower lenses. So for my white balance, I tend to just leave it on automatic. To me, it really doesn't matter too much, because if you shoot RAW, then you can change all of that after. It does matter a little bit when you're shooting JPEGs, but I don't really care for JPEGs. Doesn't really matter to me. Also, for ISO, I tend to leave it on automatic, or if I'm trying to dial it in a little bit more, I tend to try to use the lowest possible, obviously. But if I do have to bump it up, I tend to try to stay under like 400, 800-ish, the go-to. But for me, the cameras are so good, and like if I'm just posting it on Instagram, like it doesn't matter to me what ISO that I use. I'll just get the shot, which is better than not getting the shot, even if it's super grainy. Picture profiles to me don't matter. I just leave it on standard or portrait because that's what I shoot mostly. But other than that, it really doesn't matter to me. I just leave it as is. I like to shoot underexposed by a little bit, just so I can bring up the shadow detail. If you do blow the highlights, like they're gone forever, you can't bring them back. That's just how digital film is. And yeah, I just tend to shoot underexposed a little bit. These are just my personal photo settings and the stuff that I love. Hopefully you can't hear that wind. And yeah, that's all I have for this video. If you did like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And the next video up will be my video settings. And until the next video, peace.